بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Welcome to our صحبة طريقتنا الصحبة والخير في الجمعية. Often people, they are asking for advice. They are asking for advice and they want to hear something that helps them in difficult situations, in situations where they have to make a decision, maybe a decision that carries very far sometimes, and where they do not know what to do, and they're looking for advice, nasiha. Now, we should ask for advice those or whoever is entitled to give advice. And who is entitled to give advice? It depends. If he has been entitled, that means if he has given that permission or that order to give advice by somebody else who has this already, who has that permission and that capability to give people advice. And that one is entitled to give such a permission to someone else. In other words, in our matters, advice is not something that can be given easily and lightly, and it cannot be given just because one has maybe reached a certificate that says chief advisor qualified to give advice. No, advice, nasiha, it is tied to a quality of a person, to purity, to sincerity. In other words, if I'm not sincere, how can I advise anyone? Because my advice will not be really advising because it's not sincere. It doesn't come from a sincere source. It will be leaning in one way or another way, and therefore it is not real advice. So advice comes from a chain of knowledge that has been transmitted from one link to another link, that knowledge that qualifies to be able to give advice. It's what we call silsila. If these links are connected with each other and it reaches a present person, that person is qualified to give advice. Some of the big awliya were called advisor of the ummah. It was one honorific title of honor, to be advisor of the ummah. What qualified them for this? Well, the chief advisor and first advisor and the ultimate advisor of the ummah was of course Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Prophet, he gave advice because his Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, had taught him, and his advice came as a translation and explanation of the Holy Quran. Because as Maulana taught us and told us, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was the first explainer, the first translator of the Holy Quran. His ahadith are all explanations of Quran. And then from him, that knowledge passed on to the next, to the inheritors of the next generation, and so on and so on and so on, till today. So if anyone stands in this line, that one will be entitled to give advice, because he is part of that, what we call a tradition. And that tradition exists only as long as it is uninterruptedly connected. And when it is broken, it cannot be made up, it cannot be fixed or repaired. And therefore, whatever is fixed or repaired is artificial, it is not real advice. Anybody made himself into a new beginning, that is not advice, who is not connected. So that connection must be there. It is the most important condition for advice. And Maulana Sheikh Nazim Haqqani Naqshbandi, he told us also that his Sheikh, Sheikh Abdullah Daristani, Khalasallahu Sarah, all of his sahbas, they were either translation or explanation of an ayah or verse of Holy Quran, or of hadith, holy saying of the Prophet. All of his sahbas started from that, and they tried to be intended to be explanations and translations of these. And so Maulana's sahbas himself were of the same character because he inherited from his sheikh. That's why they're called inheritors. And he said, whoever is allowed, has the permission, rukhsa, to speak, that one must also inherit from me, must take from me. And it is a good habit, therefore, to speak about, as they did, to speak about Holy Quran, verses of the Holy Quran, or hadith, and say whatever comes, whatever one has received from one's teacher concerning that. If this is the case, if it is not the case, then there's no need to speak about these things, because it is not going to be real advice, it's going to be something that somebody just made up. That is meaningless. Now, we should be grateful for everything that comes our way. If we are awake and attentive, we should be grateful for everything that comes to our way, that is given to us, because it is a means, a way to teach. So having received a gift of an important collection of an important book of ahadith a few days ago, it is a Nawawi's collection of Arba'in, of 40 ahadith. I would like to speak to you about one hadith. We are also therefore trying to learn from Maulana Sheikh Mehmed, who gives a one meeting per week speaking about a hadith. That hadith is very important, like all of them are, but it came to our attention today because people there are always asking for advice. They're saying, should I do that? Shouldn't I do, shouldn't I, should, whatever. Because there we are in that same situation. As it is said, whatever is clear, be it of the good side or be it on the bad side, clearly, it does not need advice, it does not need asking. But whatever is not clear, whatever is what we call these days in the gray zone, where it could be one or could be other, could be this, could be that, that indeed needs advice. So when people are asking advice, they are justified to do that. And they should ask somebody who is entitled to give advice, to help them. The advice may not be in a simple sentence, because one of the problems of asking for advice is also that we always want to hear something already. Prefer to hear one thing or another thing. We are saying to somebody, oh, I'm going to ask you for advice. What do you think about so and so and so? And we want to hear something already, and if that doesn't occur, sometimes it even happens that such a person then goes to another one and asks for advice about the same matter. Now that means obviously that you're not interested in advice, because that means you're just fishing or hunting for something, and you have even the guts, as they say. That means you are not very morally very good, that you go from one advisor to another advisor. It's like going through the market and trying to find the cheapest and best kinds of good that suits you most. Now, what advice can that be? It's not even asking for advice. So Maulana said, if you ask for advice, ask somebody who is permitted, who has the permission to give advice, and then take that advice as it comes. Never go to another one and asking for that same question. Because that means you don't want to really ask for advice. You want to ask for something that you have already in mind that fits you. That can never be advice. It may be even very damaging, very hurting. So a condition for asking for advice is precisely that we don't know, we don't have preferences. We really don't know. That means I don't know what to do in a certain situation, and I'm asking for advice. Tell me. That must be a condition. And so when we're asking those who are entitled to give advice, we must go to them with that attitude. That goes even for looking for one's teacher. Because so often people, they are saying, well, how do I know if there's so many teachers around, there's so many claiming they are to be masters, to be ulama, to be scholars, to be knowledgeable, and so on, so many. This is what we call the marketplace. How do I know which one is a true teacher and who is not? And Maulana used to describe it always in the simplest way. He said, if you come to me and ask me, I will say, look here, these are my goods. And you look at them, and if your heart is at rest and at peace, you can take it. If your heart is not at rest, is not at peace, and don't make it up, you will be aware if this is the case. If your heart is not at rest or not at peace, don't take it, don't go with it, and don't fabricate any kind of story to justify, follow nevertheless, although your heart is not at rest. Now, this is a very important advice and very important for the times that we live in, which is very much the time of the marketplace. But like all, as we said, all the advice that was given by our advisors and by all true advisors, it is not coming from themselves, it is coming from the chief advisor of the Ummah, from the Prophet ﷺ. And so in that gift that was given to us a few days ago, in Nawawi's 40 ahadith, we found one hadith that we would like you to listen to that pertains to this story of the advice. It says, the Prophet was asked about al-birr. He said, al-birr husn al-khuluq wal-ithmu ma haka fi sadrik wa karihta an yatali'a alayhi an-nas. Yani something like, in translation, the good or rightfulness or piety. You know, they're always translating with many words, but we must try to, inshallah, settle down on an understanding of these words. Al-birr, husn al-khuluq. Yani, the good or true piety, true love of Allah, true attitude, a characteristic of a believer is husn al-khuluq, is to be of beauty of character, husn al-khuluq. And when Ibn Omar was asked about this husn al-khuluq, he said, what is it? They asked him, what is the sign for it? He said an open face and a tender tongue. An open face and a tender tongue, they are signs of that husn al-khuluq. Whereas the ism, that means, you know, sin, or as you would like, or bad attitude, bad characteristics, bad deeds, bad ideas. What is their sign? Mahaka fi sadrik. That means husn al-khuluq is, and that's why the sign of it is what they call open face and a tender tongue. It is the sign of somebody who is open, who is beautiful, husn al-khuluq. The beauty, that is also the beauty of Islam and the beauty of the Quran and the beauty of the Prophet. That beauty comes from that kind of birr, from that peacefulness and clarity within themselves. An open face is the face of somebody who is in peace with himself or herself. That shows on the face. And those who can read, and we all somewhere still have this capability to recognize, if we accept it or not, or cover it afterwards, that's another story. But we have that capability of recognizing and seeing and noticing a beautiful open face. Not a face that is made up, as they say, with makeup, but a face that is beautiful without makeup. Makeup covers the face. It is a beauty that is the result of covering. What a strange idea. True beauty does not result from covering, but it's an openness. And that is why al-birr and husn al-khuluq is indicated or assigned by that open, peaceful face of somebody who also has a tender tongue, who does not speak in a hurtful way, with a heavy tongue, with a broken tongue, with a poisoned tongue. No, with a tender tongue. That tenderness and that openness of the face and this beauty, these are signs of a true believer, Prophet ﷺ is saying here when they asked about al-birr. Whereas al-ism, the negative side, the bad characteristics, the bad ideas, bad feelings, and so on, ma haka fi sadrik, what is pulling back and forth and tearing inside of your sadr, of your chest, or of your heart. That's why the Sheikh Maulana said, if you meet somebody who claims to be a spiritual teacher and you find in your heart any doubts, any questions, any unwellness towards that, any peace, restlessness, the same goes for yourself. This is what Maulana used to say when people ask for advice. Look for that which does not haka fi sadrik. Take that as an advice. If someone asks for advice, what should I do in this situation? And somebody says, well, look, you consider to go to that job, you consider to go to that place. Does it haka fi sadrik? The idea of going there or doing that or being with that person also, whatever, all the main decisions in our life, The characteristic of that isn't the characteristics of it that it tears inside, back and forth, it itches, so to speak, in your chest. If it does, not good. Don't follow it. And be sincere and open with yourself. Whatever leaves you in peace and gives you peace, and that is you should follow. Whatever does not, and whatever tears inside in your heart or in your chest, it is not advisable to go that direction. And it is the other characteristics, as the Prophet says, وَكَرِحْتَ أَنْ يَطَّلِعَ عَلَيْهِ النَّاسِ. This is something that you would rather not, you would rather the people not to know. You would rather hide it from them. That's not something advisable either, because if you say, this is what I'm doing and this is what I would like to do, my decision, no, and you are at peace with it, and it is a sign of your husn al-khuluq, then you go in that direction. You don't have to hide it from anyone. You don't feel unwell within. You say, I don't know if they should know or not know, if they should know, and so on. That kind of speech with oneself is the character of something which is the opposite of birr. It is not good. So these are two major signs that everybody who is asking for advice, they can pay heed to and they can recognize already. And they are the main characteristics, because what fulfills one or the other, that is another story, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is that whatever you want to do or not want to do, it should have, you must ask yourself, does it have the characteristics of birr that we just described, or does it have the characteristics of isma that we just described? That you must ask yourself. And this is what Maulana always did when people came and asking for advice. He sent them, so to speak, back with a good advice to themselves and say, well, look into yourself, look into your heart, look into your chest. The question that you are asking me concerning what you should do or what you should not do, where does that leave you with when you consider it? Does it give you peace and rest and openness of face, or does it want to make you to hide, and it tears inside your chest? Ask yourself the questions. It's very simple recommendation, very clear. It saves you a lot of going around and asking for this and asking for that, and no need for big books regarding it. As all wisdom, it is simple but true, and it must be that because it's the wisdom of prophets, I said. Nawawi collected the 40 hadiths for a reason. Why 40? I mean, there are several collections of 40 hadiths. There are many more than 40. Why just 40? Because 40, as we were told, is the number of change. So if you want to change, listen to 40 ahadith. Maybe inshallah, we will be able to speak about more as Maulana tells us, as we are maybe inspired, inshallah. This seems to be a good beginning, and inshallah it makes you think and makes things clearer also. So you're not so confused regarding the issue of asking for advice. I think it is very clear, and if you have an open and sincere ear, you will hear it also as it should be heard. Alhamdulillah. آمين. إلى شرف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وآله وصحبه الكرام، وإلى مشايخنا في طريقة النقشبندية العالية. الفاتحة. Ameen, ameen, ameen. Thank you very much for listening, and inshallah see you